The Netherlands on May 10, 1940, during World War II. Paratroopers were utilized by the German Air Forces, the Luftwaffe, during the invasion of Holland to seize strategic locations and aid the advance of ground forces across the nation. As part of the invasion, Rotterdam is subjected to intense aerial bombardment, which ends on May 14 with the complete devastation of its historic core. One day later, the Dutch soldiers capitulated in response to the German threat to bomb Utrecht in the same manner. Upon taking over the entire country, the Nazis quickly enacted a slew of anti-Jewish laws meant to marginalize and oppress the Jewish population. The systematic transfer of Jewish people from the Netherlands to concentration camps began in July 1942. However, some Dutch citizens joined the resistance because they could not bear to witness their country and people being oppressed. 2 sisters among them would go on to kill Nazis and opposed the German occupation. The Oversteegen brothers' names are Truus and Freddie. The Dutchman Truus Oversteegen came into this world in Schoten on August 29, 1923. The birth of her younger sister Freddie occurred 2 years later, on September 6, 1925, and the family resided aboard a barge. Because their mother was a communist with a deep hatred for injustice, the sisters were raised in a socially conscious home. After their parents' divorce, the girls lived in a cramped apartment in Haarlem with their mom. As a result of their extreme poverty, the family slept on makeshift mattresses made of straw. The sisters learned to be compassionate toward others less fortunate than themselves. As a result, they frequently shared a bed with the Jewish refugees from Germany who shared their cramped flat. The Second World War began on September 1, 1939. Germany attacked the Netherlands on May 10, 1940. Arthur Seyss-Inquart was named Reich Commissar of the Netherlands shortly after a civil administration was created under SS auspices. His initial move was to pass several regulations that would economically discriminate against Jews. The Oversteegen girl's mother gave her daughters permission to join the resistance movement underground shortly after the occupation ended when a Haarlem Council of Resistance leader came knocking on their door. Truus was 16 years old, and Freddie was 14 when this happened. You could hear the Germans pounding on doors with the butts of their rifles. That was so loud, you could hear it in the entire neighborhood, as they dragged individuals from their homes in an interview Freddie gave in 2016. It was terrifying because they would constantly holler. More than 400 Jewish men were arrested and sent to the concentration camps of Buchenwald and Mauthausen during a raid on the Jewish quarter in Amsterdam that took place on February 22 and 23, 1941, by German soldiers. The Dutch people responded uniquely in Nazi-occupied Europe, initiating a 2-day nationwide strike known as the February Strike on February 25, 1941. The strike was brutally put down by German officials. The Nazis' stance hardened in the aftermath of this move. Separating Jews from the rest of the Dutch population and putting 15,000 of them in forced labor camps overseen by the Germans was a joint effort by the Germans and the Dutch civil service. After that, the Germans instructed the concentration of Jews in Amsterdam and relocated non-Jews and stateless individuals to the northeastern Westerbork transit camp. There were several Jews from the province who were taken to the Voet concentration camp. Cafes, pools, sports fields, museums, zoos, libraries, theaters, markets, and countless more public locations had the sign, "Forbidden for Jews," on them. The Jews were forced to surrender their possessions and had their businesses seized. The Dutch government issued new regulations on April 29, 1942, that would require all Jews to wear a yellow Star of David on their garments. Arrest and 6 weeks of detention at Mauthausen were in store for anyone found without the badge following their implementation on May 5. This was universally understood as the death penalty in the Netherlands. In July 1942, the process of deporting Jews from the Netherlands commenced. On September 3, 1944, the last train departed from West Berlin bound for Auschwitz. Over those 2 years, the Nazis and their Dutch allies deported some 107,000 Jews, most of whom were murdered in the concentration camps of Auschwitz and Sobibor. Just 5,200 made it. Another 25,000 to 30,000 Jews sought refuge in the underground, with the help of the Dutch, and of them, 2/3 made it out alive. A Jewish couple was hidden at the home of the Oversteegen family during the war. Among the most significant effects on the Dutch people during the occupation was the arbeidseinsatz, work deployment, that compelled all men between the ages of 18 and 45 to labor in German factories. About 500,000 Dutchmen were forcibly moved to Germany as part of this operation. Due to the frequent bombing of the buildings by the Allies, life in the industries was not only difficult but also dangerous. People were coerced into hiding if they refused to leave. When it came to disseminating anti-Nazi propaganda, leaflets, and cautions to dissuade Dutchmen from working in Germany, Freddie and her sister were instrumental. Disrupting the German war machine and undermining the occupiers' control were the goals of their activities. Words like, "Don't go to Germany," and, "For every Dutch man working in Germany, a German man will go to the front," were printed on their messages. Within the 7-person underground cell of the Haarlem Council of Resistance, the Oversteegen sisters constituted the sole female member. Freddie remembered in retrospect that she initially mistook the resistance for a shadow army when she first started working with them. The girls quickly expanded their responsibilities beyond delivering literature and leaflets. They would learn the fundamentals of sabotage, like how to shoot a weapon or pick up tactics to blow up bridges and trains to block roads. Allied troops relied heavily on the communications networks, internal sabotage, and counterintelligence operations of this resistance group to aid in the liberation of Holland. Any individual discovered to be a part of the resistance would face immediate execution. Freddie was useful because she could evade Nazi control while appearing as innocent as a 12-year-old schoolgirl with her hair braided. As she silently pedaled through the occupied area, carrying documents and weapons for the resistance movement, few troops paid attention to her. On the same day that she and her sister would place a communist flag at the National Socialist Movement headquarters, Freddie would also burn down a Nazi warehouse. They helped Jewish immigrants, gays, and tiny children hide from the Nazis by arranging for them to have fake documents so they could escape the camps. On the other hand, the Oversteegen sisters would likewise resort to murder when required. On her bike, Freddie shot and killed a Nazi, making her the first of her kind. Not long after, Truus started murdering Nazis as well. She once saw the horrific act of a Nazi grabbing a baby and slamming it against a wall. As the Nazi smacked the infant against the wall till it died, the baby's sister and father watched inconsolably. As Truus passed by the awful scene, she halted, aimed her gun at the Nazi, and shot him dead without remorse. Freddie would occasionally shoot a Nazi traitor from behind as Truus pedaled their bicycle. This happened on a separate occasion. While Freddie was active in the resistance, her role as a seductress stands out. Because she was young and beautiful, she would pretend to be having a love affair to approach German soldiers and collaborators. She would put on her cosmetics and go out to a restaurant or bar at night to flirt with men. After enticing her target out into the woods, she would ask him to go for a stroll. When they were alone, Freddie and her partner would happen to encounter a man who was walking along the same trail. The Nazi officer had no idea that the man was a resistance fighter who would ambush and murder him before dumping him into a previously prepared hole. As a whole, the Oversteegens went after Nazi officials, but they also targeted Dutch collaborators who provided the Nazis with information about Jewish and dissident families. However, they steadfastly refused to target the children of Nazi leaders. Their resistance commanders wanted them to abduct Reich Commissioner Arthur Seyss, 3 of Inquart's children. They declined, saying, "Resistance fighters do not kill children. We only fight against real fascists, not children." Hannie Schaft, a 22-year-old former law student, became close with the Oversteegen girls when she joined them in 1943. Over the following 2 years, they would persist in sabotaging operations, publishing illicit periodicals, and conducting targeted killings of German troops and collaborators. Hannie lent her expertise to the cause while she was a law student. As part of her covert efforts to thwart the Nazi occupiers, she would collect intelligence, fabricate identification documents, and more. Adolf Hitler personally ordered her abduction since she did so much harm and killed so many Nazis. She became a legendary character in the Dutch resistance movement as the girl with the red hair due to her fearlessness and tenacity. Hannie Schaft was arrested by the Germans in 1945, a few weeks before the liberation of the Netherlands. Freddie and Truus, their sister, survived the war. On April 17, 1945, she was put to death by firing squad after being tortured and interrogated. A symbol of the Dutch resistance against Nazi tyranny, she gave her life for her country. Just 3 days before Germany's overall capitulation, on May 5, 1945, the Germans formally surrendered all of their forces in the Netherlands. Dwight Eisenhower, the Supreme Allied Commander, presented Hannie with a posthumous Medal of Freedom after the war. The first of Truus and Piet Menger's 4 children was named after Hannie Schaft, who passed away in November 1945. Truus frequently spoke at colleges and high schools on topics such as anti-Semitism, tolerance, indifference, and conflict. Yad Vashem bestowed Israel's highest distinction to Truus Oversteegen on May 10, 1967, the title of Righteous Among the Nations. This title is reserved for non-Jews who put themselves in danger to rescue Jews from the Holocaust. Truus and Freddie were both presented with the Mobilization War Cross in 2014 by the Prime Minister of the Netherlands for their service during World War II. Freddie went away 2 years later, in 2016, at the same age as Truus, who had gone away 2 years before, aged 92. Their narrative, along with similar ones, continues to inspire bravery in the face of injustice and cruelty. Truus and Freddie Oversteegen were the subjects of many tears. To make sure you don't miss any of our future episodes, please subscribe, like, and comment below. We appreciate everything, and we'll see you again soon on the channel.